I saw on Twitter that the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped below 30,000. And so I've decided to make another video. I'm going to say a lot of important stuff again. I think I'll separate the videos that I have made under common themes on YouTube. But I've found that a lot of people don't believe the economic situation is as bad as it is. I've fought with posters on videos and in DMs about the economy. And I've decided I'm going to do that no longer. If you're not listening, that's fine. The proof is in the course that will be revealed. And we'll start with just saying the stock market's not doing too well. And then I also want to point out that the global government bond losses, the worst since 1949, investor sentiment plummets, according to Bank of America. This is from Reuters. And government bonds, for those of you that don't know, is sold to finance a government's spending, regulate their money supply. The value of it is in the trust in the government paying back interest payments on those bonds. And bond prices should rise when stock markets fall. And I've been through it with other videos where I think even expert economists ignore the signs and they say dumb things and they believe the hype and they redefine words and they tout jobs, jobs, jobs. And here's something by Bankrate about recession. And one of the things that I found the most peculiar is they talk about, I'll read this sentence to you. Part of consumption, the committee also tracks wholesale retail sales adjusted for inflation. Officials cite a manufacturing and trade sales report as the best measure, which follows the total value of all goods sold within the U.S. So far, however, those receipts have dropped 3 out of 5 months in the year, similar behavior to previous recessions, though possibly reflecting a post-lockdown reshuffling in spending from goods to services. So their idea is that they're watching it carefully, but they believe that people are shuffling their money from spending of goods to spending money on services. And I've created a shirt, around recession. 𝓟𝓛𝓔𝓐𝓢𝓔, our store. But it's basically saying that the recession is defined as whatever the government says it is, and that it's some sort of transition, because they kept using those words, we're transitioning. But needless to say, they tout jobs, jobs, jobs. We've had jobs added after the shutdown, a shutdown the likes of which we've never seen before. People were paid to stay home. They found new ways to count unemployment rates. People that stayed home and all that didn't collect unemployment if they quit their jobs, stayed home. Biggest number of people changing jobs ever. You start a new job, you can't get unemployment until you've been there a certain amount of time. Work 2 part-time jobs to make up for being laid off. You're not unemployed. You're not making the same as you were, but you're not unemployed. You're trying to make more than what they give you from unemployment, which isn't much. A lot of times it is not going to replace even an average income job. It's often minimum wage, and it's not worth it to collect it. You can go back to work, even at a fast food restaurant, and make as much as you would or more from unemployment, which you would still, a lot of places you have to pay taxes on and everything else. You are just not going to make it. So many states cap how long you can be on it. If you're on it for too long, you don't qualify as a stat. You can't receive it any longer. How many people during COVID gave up? One of the people working in a family gave up to stay home and take care of kids because they couldn't find a daycare, or schools weren't open during lockdowns. The place where your kids go during the week so that you don't have to have a babysitter. Everybody's afraid to go out and have everything open. Yet, great babysitter challenge, right? become more effective, more cost effective to have one parent stay home. And you don't qualify as a statistic for unemployment. How about getting fired for not getting a totally safe shot? A totally researched and safe shot. You get unemployment. If you're kicked out of the military with a less than honorable discharge, you get unemployment. And that isn't even considering all the medical costs from reactions and long COVID and everything else around it. What about if you're on Social Security, you're disabled? Are you getting unemployment? Are you in those stats? But let's start with the energy crisis. Biden, first off, I'll say Biden is 100% responsible for this. The EU is going through this. They are 100% responsible for it. It's Joe's fault. It's a massive dose of incompetence, a dab of stupidity, a sprinkling of lies. Also, they can cook up a disaster. Joe has always said his plan is to get rid of fossil fuels. I've posted in previous videos his comment directly to, he walked off stage a little bit to a young lady and said, "I promise you, that's what I'm going to do." He's keeping that promise. He's doing that during one of the hardest economic struggles ever with the shutdown. Shut down much of the world. You know, we took those 2 weeks to flatten the curve. But it goes from there to, you even have Native Americans in New Mexico asking for oil drilling on their land, and the Biden administration refuses. No, we got to protect it. The Navajo citizens want it. Overruled. Government's going to say, nope, ain't going to happen. The most important thing that makes a country rich and stay rich and industrious is its energy. Succeeding in energy. Green cannot replace that. Technology isn't where it needs to be. The exception is nuclear, but the Dems hate nuclear power. They hate that too. Biden's making it all about climate change, not pollution that is real, not caring about people and their lives, their livelihoods that is real. By the way, there's a tropical storm that could threaten our Gulf Coast oil industry. That's not good. It can make energy prices suck harder and much faster. At the same time, Joe has depleted our oil reserves, sold to China and the EU. Depleted them. And then gas prices are starting to creep back up. And they will creep back up. We're in a world market. We're no longer energy independent. Oil leases have been shut down. Joe is winning his war on fossil fuels. Much of the industrialized world is moving that way too, while having high inflation from lockdowns. We're looking okay right now because the whole world is in the same kind of world of hurt as we are. So now is the time to cut back on energy, right? Energy used to power industry, transport our goods, make it more expensive so goods become more expensive. Transportation and shipping more expensive so goods become more expensive. We still have shortages. We still have supply chain issues. If everyone is buying the cheapest food products right now, then are there cheapest food products even available for everyone that needs them? I know there's a lot of people that can barely afford groceries, going to the food pantries. I go to the food pantry to supplement. Our income doesn't hit the numbers. It's difficult. It's a difficult time. But energy poverty means not being able to heat your home in the winter. Fixed income retirees, those not affecting any of the job numbers or the unemployment numbers that they tout, jobs. Those fixed income retirees, they get hit the hardest with inflation. Those struggling to get by, living paycheck to paycheck, get hit the hardest. There's not much breathing room in the Biden economy. Here's a story that says the average American needs a wage increase of $11,500 to keep up with Biden inflation. That's like a $5 or $6 an hour raise, if I'm not mistaken. That's quite a lot. That's quite a big jump. And we look down here, plus $101 of groceries, average monthly increase. Look at all this. That's got to be per person too. And that's not even to talk about grocery shopping. You know, grocery shopping, you can say whatever you want about inflation rates. Grocery shopping, you know, totally different beast. Inflation rates don't mean each area of the economy. There's a core increase, core products that you buy. But Biden says, you guys make it sound like all of a sudden, my God, it went to 8.2%. It's the highest inflation rate, Mr. President, in 40 years. I got that, but guess what we are? We're in a position where for the last several months it hasn't spiked. It has barely. It's been basically even. You're all good. Inflation numbers highest in 40 years don't matter. Nobody cares if they calculated it differently back 40 years ago. They deny the definition of recession. Say the economy is in a transition. Transition to what? Another Great Depression? We all know groceries have gone up a lot, and some number generated by the government doesn't reflect all the areas that are troubling. If you don't believe so, then you're missing some real important facts. Some big signs. Market crashes are only a part of it. People not being able to pay their energy bills, only a part of it. Borrowing money to buy food, all just a part of it. Let's look at Sri Lanka. You're starting to see a worldwide food production drop, all in the name of green energy. They cut the use of terrible fertilizers. They went green. Same thing Sri Lanka did. They cut the use of that stuff. They went green. They paid high inflation. They went way too far into debt. They couldn't afford fuel and food. And they defaulted. They can't pay their bills. Well, guess what happens when the Fed raises rates? The interest payment on debt goes super high for the government. Let's say, for example, you were a country that had more than $30 trillion in debt. If you print money to pay that bill, you drive inflation through the roof. And you hit a higher and higher cost to pay back that debt. The interest payment goes up, which causes you to print more money, which causes inflation to go up. Unless you seriously raise taxes, that is. Or you probably could do that anyway and still have serious issues. Sound familiar? Sri Lanka. They fell. They collapsed. And then I think it all relates back to this. They have a plan. A great reset, as people call it. Let's read. Collapse of energy, food, transportation systems prompt calls for government nationalization of industries. Echoes 1930s push for Great Reset style reforms. Price controls, regulation, strong regulation of all industries. The modus operandi of the Great Reset, aka Build Back Better, is to intentionally collapse the current system with policies designed to create a crisis, havoc, and shortages. Once the inevitable societal chaos ensues, a huge coordinated push to promote nationalization or government takeover of the impacted industries ensues. It is always claimed that the free market failed, and now only government can come in and clean up the mess. The advocates of nationalization usually bill it as a temporary nationalization of the industries, much like 15 days to slow the spread, 2 weeks to flatten the curve, were billed as temporary measures. We know how the government is with temporary measures. They find something doesn't work after 50 years and they still have it in place. They still throw money at it. If it doesn't work, throw more money at it. Nobody has the solution. How about we start by getting rid of that program that didn't work? Save some money. Stuart Chase, a key advisor to former President Franklin Roosevelt, envisioned an early version of the Great Reset in the 30s and 40s, complete with calls for government control of energy resources, hydroelectric power, coal, petroleum, natural gas, the control of transportation, railway, highway, airway, waterway, and the control of agricultural production. Chase loved the idea of managing all aspects of society. He asked at the end of his 1932 book, a New Deal. Why should the Soviets have all the fun remaking the world? You see, they have a plan. The Great Reset. This is all falling right into it. They want you to rely on government to fix things. And when people rely on government to help, it always goes bad. This is the number one way to spread communism, socialism, destroy free markets, and then claim they failed, and the government's the only one that can step in and fix it. Step in with price controls, industry regulation, industry controls, and tax the living out of us.
9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help."